Welcome back! Okay, we were talking last time about assimilation, and just to recap, there are 3 phases to creating. The first one is germination, the phase that you're excited about the new concept, the new idea, and enthusiasm. Second one is assimilation, where you actually have to learn everything to master that skill. Third is completion. We're talking about assimilation, because in my opinion, humble but accurate opinion, that is the most important one, because that's where people end up quitting. And there's so much that goes into assimilation. So again, what is assimilation? Assimilation is learning a skill that you eventually master, and it becomes a part of you. You master it. You embody that skill. Like driving a car, at first it was hard. You were aware of everything. Now you just put your foot on the gas and go while doing 10 different things. That is embodiment. Okay? Now, if you really get assimilation in this process, because it's totally different what our schools have taught us, and with the schools, you really learn to hate learning, because for one, the stuff they teach you has no relevancy to your life for the most part. But second, it's a laborious process to have to learn. So really, I'm always thinking, how can I fold time and be more productive so I can go super fast and just kind of skip time, right? But really, when you think about assimilation, learning is the funnest part, because you understand that you're going to be putting it inside of yourself and mastering it until it becomes who you are. Okay? Now, here's a concept we all know about. Boop. Failure. Right? Is it bad to fail? Well, it's so bad to fail. I used to have a terrible fear of failure. Not so much failing, but dying with my song still in me. Okay? I'm no longer afraid of that. All right? Failure, I want to take the concept of failure, the idea of what failure is, and turn it on its head for you, because if you get this, you'll be excited about failing. Okay? And again, this is a concept that comes from Robert Fritz's, who is one of the most original thinkers of our time. His book, The Path of Least Resistance. I encourage it to anybody who's ever been born. That's who I recommend that book to. Failure there's nothing wrong with failing. 2 concepts I want to give you, 2 stories. There was this guy. He was a subcontractor. He was a carpenter. He did plumbing. He wanted to get into real estate, so he bought this old dilapidated house. It was a foreclosed home, and he fixed it up and sold it for a small margin. Well, then he bought another home, and then eventually he tried to buy an apartment complex, which was way above his reach. He had never done anything like it, and he failed big time. He failed huge. So he shrunk back, and he did a little smaller apartment building, and then kind of built his way up from there. Well, after 5 years, they called him the Condo King Kong, because he was on every building. His business surpassed every other real estate company in the city. Now, why is that? Because he learned as he went. Not just learned, and I want this concept, because it wasn't a linear process of learning. It was embodiment. He mastered this. Even with his so-called failures of that apartment complex, he still had the experience. He still had the connections and the contacts. Okay? He still had the knowledge he had gained. Right? He had all those things going for him. And it wasn't just, you just got to learn from it. It's not that kind of concept. It's not that kind of attitude around it. It's like he failed. So literally, this was his failure. And his next project, he stacked on top. His next project, he stacked on top. Until in 5 years, he surpassed every other real estate company in his state, because he stacked them on top of each other, of what he learned and embodied, all his experiences, everything from that so-called failure. If he didn't do that, if he didn't fail, it wouldn't be a block of experiences. He could still learn from his successes too. But really, successes really aren't any even better than failure, because you learn and you grow from both. And when you can stack them on top of each other, you become a powerhouse, because you embody that. Okay? There was once a young man in his school. He was learning piano in college. His teacher gave him 6 lessons. Okay? He said, here's lesson 1. Next week we'll work on lesson 2. Spend the week on the lesson 1. So the young man started playing this this little this little thing that his teacher had for week 1. When he was ready for the second lesson after the first week, the kid was like, "Oh, professor, I can't go on to the second lesson because this first one I don't quite get. I suck at it. And so I suck at it. Let me spend a couple more weeks on this before I move on." And this is kind of what our culture tells us, right? Is to master something before you move on. You have to get it perfect, right? Before you can move on because you don't want to fail, okay? His professor said, sorry, Bob, we are not going to spend any more time on this. We're moving to lesson 2. And Bob was like, "But professor, I suck at this. I don't even understand what I'm doing." The professor said, "That's okay. Well, let's move on to lesson 2. So Bob spent the next lesson of piano on lesson 2 for the next week. After that week was up, he told the professor, "Professor, I need to spend more time on this lesson because I don't quite get it. I really suck at it." Professor says, "No, we're moving on to lesson 3. He went through 6 lessons, okay? Each and every time, Bob felt he sucked at each one, he wasn't competent at it, and he didn't know how to do it. But after that 6th lesson, the professor said, "Now go back and play lesson 1. Bob went back and played lesson 1. He played it with such finesse and such perfection that he played it better than had he stayed on it for another month learning just lesson 1. And I want to get this process across to you because this is part of failure and it's part of the assimilation process. Okay, it's stacking all your experiences on top of each other and growing exponentially. Failure is huge, okay, as far as how it can help you to succeed. So we'll get into more stuff in the next lesson, but I really want to get this because if you fail fast and fail often, you will blow past people, you will grow exponentially, and you will be a powerhouse that is unstoppable because you understand this one concept that failure is your friend. Maybe we'll even create another name for failure because it has so much baggage around it. That's for another lesson. For now, failure is your friend. Enjoy your week, guys.